This is Hollow Knight and this is Dark Souls. Both of them seem pretty different, huh? But hear me out what I'm trying to say. So, Hollow Knight is not a Souls-like, but Dark Souls is a Hollow-like, which means Dark Souls is Hollow Knight-like. The dying and the leaving behind the bloodstain with all your resources thing is basically the same as leaving your shade behind when you die with all your resources. The only difference is you don't have to fight your bloodstain in Dark Souls. Then there's Firelink Shrine. I would say this is the biggest ripoff because it is exactly the same as Dirtmouth. Like seriously, both of them are a starting safe area where NPCs appear as you move along the game. Both of them are old and abandoned. Moving on, in Dark Souls, you can only save the game at bonfires, and in Hollow Knight, you can only save the game at benches. Then there's the first boss. Both of them have a huge hammer-like weapon. Both of them jump from the ceiling and the floor beneath them also breaks. And Darkroot Forest? It's basically Green Path, bro. What are we even doing at this point? Both of them are based around plants and have enemies that are based around plants. Like, do I even have to say anything? Then there's Crystal Peak and Crystal Cave. They didn't even thought about the name at this point. Both of them are based around crystals and do crystal stuff. They have enemies that are crystal based and beam based attacks. And that is like, they are not. We get it. Dark Souls and Hollow Knight are two very different games, and I think we should not confuse Hollow Knight with a Souls-like. And I have seen many people who have tried to establish the difference between these two, but since there is so much content in Hollow Knight left to talk about, I would like to forcefully compare Dark Souls to Hollow Knight. Firstly, I can't help but see the similarity of how progress happens in both games. In Dark Souls, you have to beat 4 bosses to collect the Lord Souls to beat the final boss. And in Hollow Knight, you have to break 3 seals and collect the life jewels from 3 dreamers to get to the final boss. Both Hollow Knight and Dark Souls have a light fire and a dark abyss based elements. The only thing that is different is that in Hollow Knight, the abyss is quote-unquote good and the sunlight is quote-unquote bad. And in Dark Souls, the sunlight is good and abyss is bad. In both games, the player character is a very small, insignificant being that was found left to rot and imprisoned somewhere from where the escape is almost impossible until they come back and save the world by sacrificing themselves. Furthermore, both the worlds are very detailed and intricately designed. Both of these worlds connect and loop back in complex and surprising ways. Even though Hollow Knight is a proper Metroidvania, but if we think about it, Dark Souls also has a lot of elements of a Metroidvania, but I think it becomes a bit hard to notice because Dark Souls is 3-dimensional, because both of these worlds feature shortcuts that make players feel like a sense of discovery and exploration. Furthermore, there are a lot of secrets and both games reward the player for being curious and going out of their way. Both these games rely heavily, and I mean heavily, on environmental storytelling. Like, both of these games have worlds and environments that tell their own stories. Even though both of these games have occasional cutscenes, there is more questions than they explain stuff. Tell me, when you first saw this cutscene, how much did you understand? Okay, there is a light inside a statue. Wait, that's why it's called Hollow. Nope, that's not it. Nope. Okay, now there's this dude. Wait, did he just jump off a cliff? And on the other side, okay, there is a world with dragons. Okay, now there is a world without dragons. Okay, there are humans. Okay, there are no humans. Okay, there is fire now. Okay, there is no fire now. The sound design is something we need to talk about. Both games come with soundtracks that are brilliantly made to fit in with the world and set up the feel for the world. How Dirtmouth should feel is set up by the Dirtmouth soundtrack, and how Firelink Shrine should feel is set up by the Firelink Shrine soundtrack. Both of these soundtracks vary from relaxing and peaceful like Queen's Garden and Firelink Shrine to thrilling and immersive like Great Wolf Sif and Sealed Vessel. Both of these games feature mysterious, ruined, crumbling kingdoms with remnants of once great civilization. In Hollow Knight, it is Hollow Nest, and in Dark Souls, it's Lordran. In Hollow Knight, it is crumbling structures, overgrown towns, and cities under eternal rainfall, and in Lordran, it is crumbling town, abandoned cities, flooded cities, and overgrown forests. The quote-unquote final boss in both the games are more similar than you think. Both of them sacrificed themselves for the good of the kingdom/world. Both of them were once great fighters, and the problem with one is that bro is too hollow, and another is that bro is not hollow enough. Both the kings in both the games committed great sins for the sake of the kingdom, and both of them ended up dead.